a video on making yogurt using powdered milk. So I made some yogurt and I wanted to see if I could improve the yield of the yogurt by adding some more milk powder to the milk that I used. It worked, but I was kind of thinking, well, actually, can we make yogurt from milk powder? So we're going to have a go, because I was making yogurt today and I've got some yogurt whey, which is what I'm going to use as the culture. So we've got 400 millilitres of water, which is about 45 degrees in temperature. So add some 40 grams worth of milk to that and give it a whisk around. It's skimmed milk, so I don't think the yield will be just as good as the yield from when I normally make milk, because I always use full fat milk. Oh, it's melted into that quite easy. And then so we've got some culture, which is my yogurt culture. So add that in, give it a mix around, and then into a thermos flask. Keep it warm for about 12 hours, and then we'll see if milk powder can be used to make yogurt. I'm curious. So that one, lid on there, and then we'll put we'll wrap it in a couple of cloths and we'll keep it somewhere warm, and we'll see what it's like in 12 hours time. Let's have a look and see if this works. I need a spoon because I'm not prepared. I'm not bothered if it's thinner than the usual yogurt I make. I'm only really concerned that it actually works, just out of curiosity. I don't know why I did that. So, has it worked? Yes, it has. Yes, it has. So, looks alright, doesn't it? So, we can make yogurt from powdered milk. How's it taste? It's alright. It's not as rich as the normal yogurt I make, but that's because it's milk powder's made with semi-skimmed milk. Yeah, so probably what the dairies do, like the big dairies, when they're taking the fat from the cream from the milk, and taking out as much cream from the milk as possible, they'll be left with semi-skimmed milk, because they've taken the fat off for cream and butter and those type of things. So they'll probably have an abundance of semi-skimmed milk, and then what do you do with it all? What do you do with milk that you've got a lot of, and you kind of go, well, you evaporate off maybe they don't evaporate off the water, but you get rid of the water out of it and turn it into milk powder, and then it sustains its shelf life. So, just out of something's in the back of the stove that I just need to stir around. So, out of interest, how can I describe this? This has got really nothing to do with cooking, but more about economics. So, back in the 80s, there was all this talk about in Europe, in the EU or the EC or whatever it used to be called, whatever it's the EU now. There was all this talk of butter mountains and wine lakes where farmers had overproduced. I can't remember if they had been encouraged to overproduce things like wine or butter or those type of things, but we ended up with a lot of certain things like butter and wine, and everyone was kind of like a bit of they thought it was ridiculous that we'd end up with these things that we didn't use. But there's a method to it, and so what you do is you take a perishable product like grapes or like milk, and to store those things you need either like refrigeration, or you need to freeze it, which takes power. But what you can do is you can take a perishable product like milk, and you can turn it into something else and prolong its shelf life. So what you can do with milk is you can turn it into butter, which reduces the amount of the volume of it down to a lot smaller amount, or you can turn it into cheese, And then what you can do is which prolongs the shelf life, and certainly with things like hard cheese or wine, you have then got a commodity which you can keep kind of indefinitely. And once you've got a commodity like that, then you can borrow money on that commodity. So if you have £1 million worth of wine sitting in a warehouse, you can borrow money against that wine. So you've taken a commodity which would spoil and go off, and you've turned it into something which you can store on a long-term basis, and then you can borrow money on that product. Certainly you can with things like Parmesan, and Parma hams and all those type of things. Once you take a commodity, and then you can then borrow money against it, and what it does is then that stabilizes an economy. So I found it quite ridiculous that we'd have these butter mountains and wine lakes, but not really kind of understanding that what the purpose of these things was to borrow money on them and also start stable economies. So, and the same with, I presume the same with milk. If you've got a lot of skimmed milk, what are you going to do with it? You're either going to throw it away, give it to animals to eat, sell it extremely cheaply, which the problem with that is it brings the price of milk right down, because you're selling off skimmed milk at a third the price of full fat milk. Everyone just goes, it then reduces the price of the full fat milk. So what do you do with it? Well, to store it or freeze it, it's going to cost a lot of power. But what you can do is you can turn it into milk powder, and then give it a shelf life of a couple of years, and then you can then use that milk powder to send to countries which are in famine as well, to give them a source of protein. So that's probably why we have milk. That's why they've got milk powder, and it's also and then if you've got a warehouse full of milk powder, you can then take that value of that milk powder and borrow money against it, and prop up your economy. But anyway, so completely off subject, but it's something I found interesting, and if I found it interesting, and hopefully I've explained it enough in a way that other people can kind of quite understand it. But there you go. So yeah, so it'll be made out of semi-skimmed milk, because that's what they'll have a lot of after they've taken the fat off the milk. I'm waffling as always. So it works, just not as rich and creamy as my usual yogurt, but that's being understandable because I want as much fat going into it. I suppose could use the method that I used before, where I could use double the amount of milk powder to make it richer. But anyway, so it works out of curiosity, and if you're ever stuck for you want to make some milk and you've only got milk powder, you can make yogurt out of it. But there we go. I wonder, here's the next video, if we could actually, once we've made the milk, could we curdle it and make like a ricotta? So take powdered milk, reconstitute it, add lemon juice or a rennet, and then produce a ricotta or curds. Maybe that's the next thing to do as well. But anyway, that's another video. I always kind of think that these videos, I'll do this and I'll find something out, and that'll be kind of quite interesting, and then it always leads to more questions. So started faffing on with milk powder, and now I'm thinking about, well, can we make some cheese out of that? So it always leads somewhere else, or maybe I've just got no, I don't think you can have too much curiosity. You can have too much curiosity, but a healthy amount of curiosity is a good thing. So a success, it works, and we learned a bit of something.